Have you ever felt the weight of 1,000 decisions on your shoulders? As first-time voters, that is the situation we are all in. The severity of our decisions, we do not know the impact it will have. But that is not just the plight of us alone. There are 18 million people with us, 18 million first-time voters, whose decisions will impact the face of politics in India, not just today, but for the next 5 years. Today's panel, The Dance of Democracy, dives into that very dilemma. It talks to us as first-time voters. It makes us understand the thought process we should have while entering that electoral booth. So, I think I would like to extend a very warm welcome to each and every one of you viewers, whether you're an expert voter or even a first-time voter. This talk is open for each and every one of you.
Joining us in the panel today, we have Dr. Sujit P. Surendran, Professor at Lions School of Law. Great to have you with us, sir.
We also have with us Dr. Mukul Saxena, Professor and Director of the Center of Excellence in Public Policy, the Sustainability and ESG Research and Director, Center for Postgraduate and Legal Studies. Sir, it is an honor to share this table with you.
Thank you so much. It's so wonderful to have you all host us.
Thank you, sir. 2024 is going to be a record year for elections globally. 33% of the global population will be voting this year. Now, to put that into perspective for people who are not great at maths like myself, 33% means 2.6 billion people. 2.6 billion people across the world will take a chance to vote this year. But India is bringing 900 million of those people to the table. We are expecting 900 million people to vote, and for that very reason, speeches and talks like this are so important right now. 900 million people need to know how to choose and how to opt for and how to go into that electoral booth without having the complexities or the ideas that people are saying or the influences surrounding them.
I am particularly excited to share my experience on this topic. Recently, I had the privilege of participating in a field survey organized by Lions School of Law, the Center of Excellence. We went directly to the source, interacting with local residents in Karnataka and hearing their voices firsthand. The recent field survey, it wasn't just about collecting data. It was about witnessing firsthand the very processes we dissect in our textbooks. Every single interaction felt like a small but crucial step towards understanding the pulse of our democracy. Every interview became a microcosm of the ongoing debate. How can we best translate the abstract notion of the people rule into a functioning system, and what's a system that will reflect the will of the people, the thoughts of the people? And just like Natanya mentioned earlier, the overwhelming sentiment is that voting is not just a duty, it's a right. They exercise their freedom, we exercise our autonomy while voting. And this is because voting empowers our people to be agents of change. And this first-hand experience just showed how important it is to be informed and to actively participate in our electoral process. Moreover, these discussions surfaced a lot of pressing issues. For example, economic inequalities or even water problems and etc. So we see that there's a need for a responsive and accountable government, and a government that would address these real-world challenges that are faced by ordinary citizens. And this survey that was recently conducted follows in the footsteps of a groundbreaking project led by Dr. Saxena in Chhattisgarh and Uttar Pradesh, the EVM to EVM survey. This earlier research provided valuable insights and helped shape our approach. So Dr. Saxena, you built this project, this was your idea. So what motivated you to conduct this entire survey?
Firstly, thank you both of you for inviting us here. And it's indeed a great opportunity for us also to share our views. The EVM to EVM, and it kind of comes out, is called Enter the Voter's Mind in the last 20 meters to the electronic voting machine. So it was me and a colleague of mine, Rajat, who actually thought of this idea and kind of tried to see how elections will change. And we realized that the rationality of decision making is largely emotional. Everybody is driven by a sense of emotion. And in fact, when we did the survey here also, you always felt there was an emotional charging, right? They felt there were issues which were very close to them, which was for what they would vote for. But I think the common strand and what inspired us to undertake the study here, for the sense of their duty to vote with an unrelenting hope for change. And when I kind of put that thing template to you young and the bright first time voters, I think this is the complexity I'm sure each one of you will face. And to put it this way, the choices we make will decide how the future of this country will be. And so I know whether what will enter your mind before or later, but I'm sure it will be an instrumental part in how you make a decision.
So to follow up, do you think the variable here, the emotional nature of people, do you think the role it plays in our decisions during elections is a positive or negative role?
I really can't qualify positive or negative, but you can see how the IPL moves, right? How the IPL sees the emotions get charged. It not depend on which team is winning, it's about which team you support, right? So I think that emotional charging will be from your side. All that the endeavor has to be that in emotional charging there is an anchoring to the rationality of decision making. And I always say that you have in the public domain a lot of mediums to make a decision. The Election Commission has done a wonderful job. It gives you the complete assessment of a candidate's disclosure profile. It gives you other means. As students, you are of law, I'm sure you are aware about how decisions could be. So all that we look at the first time voters is essentially an emotional but a very rational decision. So thank you.
Thank you
I
so
think
much,
I haven't answered the question.
So these were about emotions influencing our decisions as first-time voters. Dr. Sujit, you have actually contested in assembly elections. You had your boots on the ground. You were there, you saw the voters come in, you saw people like us, first-time voters, young voters come in. So what were you expecting as someone who's standing in elections? Is there a certain mindset you expected? What did you think that we would be feeling? What sort of speeches would you have made? What was your thoughts at that point of time?
Also, if I may add a second leg to that question, even when you went out to, what's the word when you go and campaign for elections? Thank you so much. When you campaigned for the elections and you met the first-time voters, how were the interactions like, and what do you think made them stand apart from the people who have actually voted but don't really understand what they're doing?
Okay, thank you for having me. And let me start with the second question. When I met the young voters, what I have seen is the aspirations of a better world where they can live. So when a first-time voter comes to vote, what they look for is a world in the future where they are going to live, where they are going to work and earn and live their life. They are looking forward to create a better world. So that is the message also I have to give to the youngsters who are going to vote for the first time. The idea of your political aspirations or the political ideologies are shaped by your experiences and learning. The idea about the world where we want to live in, of our elders are shaped by their knowledge, their experiences in the past. But it is completely different for the young generation. The new generations, your experiences are created by the modern facilities in this world. And what you aspire to make this country is very important. And it's very important for you to go and vote, cast your vote, so that your world in the future is created according to what you want to live in, according to your desires of a future world for you. What I expect from the first-time voters is there is a lot of information which is coming to us from various campaigners and political parties. Some information is reaching to you, to touching your emotions. And when I went and campaigned, what I understood was that most of the youngsters are able to understand what are the real issues and what are the constructed issues in this world. So what I expect from all the first-time voters, as a citizen of this country, from all the first-time voters, what I expect is please understand the real issues in the world. Please separate it from emotions and go and collect the real information, authentic information. You have information available about the candidate in the Election Commission's website, the agenda of the political parties in the Election Commission's website. You have a C-Vigil mobile application by Election Commission of India. You have also My Candidate application. All these are the sources which will provide you the authentic information. Use the authentic information to formulate your opinion and cast your vote for a better world.
So we've reached an interesting point in this conversation. On the left side, we have Dr. Mukul, who believes that emotions play a very important role. While on the right side, we have Dr. Sujit, who says that one should keep emotions separate from rationality. So, Dr. Mukul, do you want to add on anything Dr. Sujit said? Because I believe the very essence of your survey was EVM to EVM, which was dealing with emotions in its very self.
Yes, see how it works, right? It's a very dominant pitch that I saw, even that yes, there is an emotional content, and how do I relate to it is how inputs start feeding up, right? You know, you may get a message in the morning and you'll be suddenly happy about the message, and that will drive everything away, and drive your decision for the entire day. And I'll put it this way: haven't you seen people say, "Oh, you have spoiled my day"? That's the emotional connect to it. But where I kind of converge to my understanding with Professor Sujit, that how would long-term implications of an emotional decision reach, right? So when we did this survey, everybody was emotionally attached to the village itself. What do you want? We want roads, electricity, some water coming. But let's put it this way, every time you walk out of the university and see the heat catches. And there are certain things which you as informed youth has to kind of conjoin together. Emotionals will be there. But the rationality is that what are you looking at in future? Climate is something which has been oft spoken in the think tanks, right? Academia. But when you go back to the voter, for him it doesn't make a difference. For him, he says my livelihood is food, water, like roti, kapda, makan, and he says, well, this is the way I want to go. So what kind of gets the onus on you as the first time voters and who have a significant number, that you need to rationalize that. I mean, that's the whole aim. But you can't discount one of the other, right? They're both mutually inclusive.
So the balance is where we
very
find,
important.
Yeah.
And some of them would balance and lean towards emotion, somebody will go to rational. But the idea, I think, is the assessment of loss. I mean, what are you expecting for the 5 years from now, right?
Yeah.
And would you stand to lose from the decision that you take today in 5 years from now? And that is kind of called the informed choice.
Thank you for clarifying that for us.
Which is why I think earlier we spoke about informed and active participation, and emotional bias is something inherent in human nature, so you can't really take it out. But I agree with Dr. Sujit, because I can't base my entire opinion off of emotions, because then it might not be rational in the long run. So as we've spoken about, there is so much of information available everywhere, be it your election websites, be it the social media. We have a lot of memes coming up, a lot of mockery of some of our favorite politicians, but these also tend to feed into our emotions and our perceptions of these politicians or these parties or etc. So if I'm a first-time voter, which I am, and I'm looking at all of these things and all of these people, I would come to a point where I'm so confused on who do I pick? Because I could have 5 politicians who are saying we will give you the same thing, but who would actually give that to me? And so how would you suggest a first-time voter should go about when they are picking who to, or deciding who to vote for?
This is interesting question. This is actually the dilemma in a democracy. Okay, so we may have equally good candidates, but we are not able to pick whom to vote. So in such scenario, what I would request all young voters is study the political parties' manifestos. All the parties are coming with the manifestos. So that is where the political ideology and political manifestos will play an important role. Traditionally, political manifestos used to be printed in our country. Now it is available online, so you can download it on your mobile phone. you can go through the political manifestos and understand what are the major issues they are addressing. Are they addressing your issues? Are the political ideology are aligned with your value systems? Because you have your own values and your own ideology and principles. Is the political manifestos of the candidate is matching with your ideology is what you can look forward to.
Dr. Hokel, would you like to add to that?
No, I will kind of take you on a different path actually, and I say that there is a vulnerability of a political brain, and you all are political brains. I remember 9 million?
900 million.
900 million are all the vulnerabilities of political, and why I say there is a vulnerability, and it goes for everybody. There is a vulnerability of the political brain. What influences you most? Maybe our WhatsApp messages influences us a lot. Maybe speeches influence, slogans influence. I mean, one of the best slogans of Indian history has been Jai Jawan, Jai Kisan, or Garibi Hatao, something which totally changed the narrative of politics. So when I say yes, you have to kind of make a decision, make a conscious thing, then one has to understand, also in fact go in retrospect to say what are the vulnerabilities I feel. Maybe that is the identification of how you move, and that's what we call is the vulnerability of the political brain.
So, what would you define the political brain as? Like when you say I have a political brain?
So I will say, again, see, I'm little into the emotion. I say, well, the assessment of loss, gain, right? So imagine you are being with a political person, or you have an ideology to say, well, you support a candidate called A. You realize that he may or may not be a good candidate, but I need to vote for him or her. Because if I don't vote, maybe I have a certain, amongst my friends, my predictions may go wrong, or you may also go and say, well, he is from my, working caste and everything comes, that vulnerability is what we question, and that vulnerability is the first entry point of misinformation, disinformation, right? So that's what we call, and vulnerabilities are, what your assessment of loss, what's your assessment of gain. Okay, if that party wins, this will happen. If that candidate wins, it will be good for maybe not the entire community, but me. So where you assign the vulnerabilities to yourself, you say, well, yeah, I know that this is going to be a problem, and that is very important to understand. I mean, half of the time, remember Cambridge Analytica during the US elections, it all spoke about how emotions would react, and the complete campaign was driven by that.
So right? They tend to cater sometimes to your personal bias, if you would say?
Yes, definitely it turns to one. Imagine if somebody like a student or somebody in a village is told that yes, we will give you free education, for example. It naturally tends to influence the decision. But then as informed, educated young students, you have the option to decide the pros and cons to it, right? And why we insist on it, because as I know Professor Sujit has a different position on that, but my position is that you will be an emotional person when you go out to vote. And I'm sure when you go out to vote, you will see that my idea of you will begin to change your decision ever since you take the ticket and punch the voting machine, which I say EVM to EVM. So that's how I look at it, right?
So building on both your questions, you spoke about being an educated person, or rather an informed person, and Sir spoke about getting into the political ideologies. But up to the 18 million first-time voters, a lot of them are uneducated or do not have the opportunity to probably get the sort of education that very few people in India do, or very few first-time voters in India do. So whichever one of y'all would like to take that question would be great. How do you think that impacts the outcome of the election? And especially as first-time voters voting, and we're like, oh, let us vote for this person, and then we're very excited. But a lot of people, they don't really have that opportunity to understand and to learn and know about what they're doing.
Democracy has been faced with all these criticisms from the beginning itself. If you look at Plato's Republic, there is a lot of criticism which is being against. There are lot of criticism against democracy from the beginning. Now, coming to your question, that is, not everyone may be well educated, all voters may be well educated. That is the importance of our democracy, India's democracy, because we are a plural society. We celebrate and practice democracy not just to govern us, but also to make a representation, or the governance is done by maybe a handful of people, 534 people in the parliament making decisions for us, for 1.4 billion people. But those decisions, while made, are considering the voices of every Indian. That is what we are trying to ensure, that every Indian is being represented there. Whatever is your religion, caste, educational background, whatever community you come from, we are trying to make a representation there. So even the first time voters who's not educated, we can never say that his choice is wrong. His choice is valid, his choice is important, and it is important that what he thinks or who he thinks his voice will get represented in the parliament is still a valid exercise of our democratic values and principles.
In fact, if I say that, you both represent in many ways the first time voters, right? And both are studying in the same institution, partly taking the same courses, but your course of the decision making matrix may hugely vary. Right?
Correct.
Right? So to discount, I definitely felt it was important to say, but if you discount education or discount voting just because education was not there, may not be fair in the larger interest and the spirit of democracy.
Because I think a lot of our population is uneducated, and that's
Yes.
something our government has been trying to fix, and they will keep trying to fix. It's one of the reasons we are always trying to choose a better government for us. And this is the building block of democracy. It's the people. It's the people's rule. Democracy in its very essence, our preamble itself says that we are the people, and the authority the constitution gets is from the people, because it's for us. We decide who rules us, we decide what we want in the future, and everything, it just boils down to the fact that we as citizens will make a certain choice that will impact generations to come.
And when it comes to the dilemma in itself, on this very table, we have reached a point of headlock. With on the left side, we have the role of emotions and vulnerability playing a major role. And on the other side, we have rationality. Sir says that rationality should be the way one would go while taking a vote. This dilemma of the balance between emotion and rationality will be further discussed at the webinar Dance of Democracy on the 23rd of April, where Dr. Sujit and Dr. Mukul will delve into topics that are much more than the ones discussed here today. They will give us the chance as first-time voters to think and to comprehend our choices and to be well informed when we go into that voting booth and we take our decision.
And to all the viewers out there, to all the first-time voters, remember, we are the people. We are the people who decided our past. We are the people who will decide our present. And we are the people who will decide our future. We are the world's largest democracy. It's not just our duty anymore. It's an initiative towards the world, to make the world a better place, to make our nation a better place.